money get paper. Cause you know we party hard later. Mr. Flex and Papa got the old city lock, but you get the each and every area. Stepping NLC with no chaser.
Good afternoon, good evening, and good night. I am Alluminati, and this is the Crypto and Cognac podcast show, as always, powered by Alti.com, the one-click crypto wallet for Telegram, WhatsApp, and Discord. And as always, fueled by my friends at Hennessy TT. But tonight, we're going to do it a little different. Unfortunately, we have been in the bear market for the last couple weeks, couple months, some will say as much as a year. And because things are a little tight, we decided to do things a little different. As I have a conversation with my good friend, amazing digital artist, and the name that has been on everyone's lips this week, my good friend, Mr. Nicholas Huggins. Nick.
Hello. Cheers, man.
Cheers. We haven't bears because we're in the bear market. We're going to be talking about the bear market. We're going to be talking about how NFTs have been affected by the bear market. And Nick, even though you're no stranger to the podcast, you know, I up to today I checked back to see when was the last time you were on the podcast, and I realized that it was about the same time last season. So last season you came on episode 27. This season you're on episode 26. So
nice.
Not a year, but a year, right? You can count it as a year. Nick, before we get started, I want to congratulate you, most importantly, on your marriage to the beautiful Alex.
Thank you very much.
I know people listening was expecting something else, but that's not as important as this. Congratulations, buddy.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a real big day. A real big day.
Yeah, it was a big day, and I mean, we're gonna talk about that day from the perspective of that life experience, but we're gonna talk about it from the perspective of crypto as well. But for those who have not met you before, who don't know Nicholas Huggins, give us a little background on who you are and how you came to be.
Sure. So I'm a graphic designer, an illustrator, a painter. I do try to dabble in all different types of art, try to mix it up a little bit. My day-to-day is primarily running Backyard Design, which is a design agency that I founded maybe about 5 years ago. We do branding work, packaging design work, we do digital content creation, we do a kind of host of different things. Also, too, I get a lot of illustration job requests as well. So, for instance, the Johnny Walker illustration that's now outside Queen's Park Oval, the McDonald's stuff that we spoke about last year. A pretty wide range of digital art, graphic design, branding, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So you've been dabbling both on the corporate side through Backyard, as well as on the more artist creative side as an individual artist as well.
Yeah, definitely. Because I mean, as a creative person, doing client work is fun, and it's very rewarding to be able to get that positive feedback from clients and really help small businesses and big businesses and medium businesses with their branding and how they look on the shelves and that kind of thing. But of course, as a creative person, you also want to be creating stuff that's kind of true to you and doesn't really need to represent anything outside of what you as an individual wanted to represent. So of course, I also do a lot of art, and as you know, in the last year, it's been a lot of NFT work. And you know, as most people can look at my art, they will see that I try to put Trinidad and Tobago forward in terms of like the concepts and stuff that I touch on in my work, you know.
Right. And I mean, for those who you mentioned a few things briefly, but for those who don't know, you're responsible for Bertie's Pepper label, one of my favorite brands. Kes most of the recent work that Kes has done, the is we concert theme. That's you're the pen behind that. What else? What else? The Johnny Walker recently.
Johnny Walker recently, ATN Charles have done his branding, both his personal branding, and this week he released his carnival band for next year. So we did the branding for that as well. A lot of random stuff like Nariel cooking oil, Simply Natural cooking oil, C Just Bay Cosmetics, C Just Bay soaps. We do a lot of work with the CGA on all their products, their margarines, their soaps. Yeah, a lot of different things.
I know you
still have a few big things in the works, you know.
I know you guys have won some awards, and I mean for an agency, a design agency that has only been in existence for 5 years, you know, it's pretty impressive. That I think you won back-to-back years.
Yeah, I think no. Last year we won for the Kes We Home artwork. We won some stuff the year before for C Just Bay. Most recently this year we won for Technigro, which is a product from FD Fafa's agricultural division. That actually went on and won a gold award regionally in the Caribbean Addy Awards, and then it went on to the American Addy Awards where it won a silver Addy, which was like a pretty big deal for us. It was the highest we got up in the Addy Award ladder of awards. We also collaborated with Lonsdale, Saatchi and Saatchi. They brought us on for 2 jobs. They brought us on for the McDonald's Cups. So of course, I illustrated those. That won a gold and a silver award. And they brought us on to do a mural at the Sissons paint shop. And that actually ended up winning best of print overall in the Caribbean, which was a pretty big deal. Yeah, that was also like a really landmark achievement for our agency, you know. And that what was nice about that is I brought out the whole team. I brought out Siobhan, who does client services, Aaliyah, who's a boss designer that works with us, and the 3 of us basically spent 2 days painting that mural in the Sisson shop. So that was a lot of fun.
That's real cool. I mean, so I'm here trivializing the fact that, you know, you may have won an award or 2, but clearly you're out here winning.
Well, yeah, just as you know, working hard.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that I like. Anybody that I talk to and your name comes up, you know, I always say Nicholas has a totally different energy and work ethic to the traditional artist. And I want to talk a little bit about that. Like, what gives you as an artist, as a creative, as somebody who, you know, needs to be inspired? What allows you to be able to create so regularly, be so consistent about it, and not just from the corporate work, because I know personally that you are constantly creating, constantly sketching, constantly drawing. What do you think it is that gives you that work ethic?
I mean, I'm not really too sure, but I mean, it's definitely something where I like to, like, I don't feel inspired all the time. I don't feel a lot of times I may be doing work and I don't think it's the best work that I'm doing. Like, as you know, like I send you a lot of stuff that I'm working on, and as you know, I'm working on an illustration now for like the last month, and it's just not really coming together. But I believe, like, in a case like that where something's not coming together for whatever reason, you really need to just like keep at it, and then eventually it will click, and then eventually that one thing at the end of it is the success that people see. But really and truly, it could be like a month or even 2 months of kind of being stuck in a rut with something, and then really having that moment of inspiration where people are like, oh my God, that's like an amazing thing or whatever. But it's really, you just have to keep working, and then when the inspiration hits, there's like a famous quote where it's like, when inspiration hits, make sure it catches you at work, right? So that's something I kind of keep true to my heart. As far as like the design work goes, because with design work, you're working on client timelines and that kind of thing, it definitely comes down to just pressure. Sometimes once again you maybe working on something, but the pressure really just gets to you and you end up creating something that's really good.
Right.
And then of course when you have a team and you have the responsibility of making sure that the team is well taken care of, the team gets paid on time, all that kind of stuff, all that definitely adds to the necessity to make sure that you're consistent. And I think that's something that we try to keep close to our heart at Backyard Design, is being consistent, because we don't want someone to come to us and walk away unhappy or whatever the case is. So we always try to put out a high level of work consistently, you know.
Right. And how would you say that now being in the NFT space for a little over a year now, how has that inspired your work? How has that influenced your work? What has that done in terms of has it carried over at all into your traditional work?
Yeah, I mean, I have been sharing illustrations online for maybe the better part of 10 years, right? So I've been constantly creating. And a lot of things, like, I look back on now and some stuff wasn't of the highest caliber, but I don't really study that. To me, it's at that time, it was just about practice, right?
Yeah.
And that was like training. And then now with NFTs, I feel like NFTs is like game time. So the stuff that I put out as NFTs, it's like I really want it to be a culmination of all the hours of work that I've put in practicing illustrations all these years. So what NFTs have done is they've kind of enabled me to spend a lot more time working on one illustration, because of course there is a certain reward that you get through collectors picking up your pieces or whatever the case is. And you know that, okay, cool, this isn't just something that I'm just going to sell once. There's also the potential that as you build your brand, you build on the secondary market and people pick stuff up. And like, as you always remind me, in 50 years time, I may be sitting down and I might be getting big sales and secondary market coming in as passive income. So just all these thoughts kind of really allow me now to spend so much more time. So I'd say, for the most part, that's kind of how the NFT space has really enabled me to take my work, I think, to a higher level of execution.
Right. And over the year, I mean, how has that journey been in terms of, maybe I think Carnival Meta Vendors was your first NFT collection?
Yeah, that was my first NFT collection. I mean, that, like, even now, like, I look back on it, I think there's like some really cool pieces.
For sure.
I think everything that I look at, and like, I have you as a ear to listen to, and someone who gives me a lot of advice and stuff. And I think sort of like my goal going forward is that in 10 years time, 15 years time, people will look back on this collection as one of the first collections ever to be minted in the Caribbean, one of the first collections ever to be minted in Trinidad and Tobago. So I think it's definitely going to hopefully have like that sort of historic reputation moving forward, because of course, with the blockchain, everything is transparent. People could see mint dates, the provenance is there. There's no doubt about when this was minted. And I think even in general, I think that's why something like CryptoPunks has achieved so much notoriety. It's because it's early, it's historical, and I think when we look back in 20 years time and NFTs become something that everyone interacts with, it's going to be something where people look at it and say, this was a collection that was minted in October 2021 in the first few years of NFTs or whatever the case is, So that's kind of how I see this collection,
And I mean, let's talk a little bit about this collection, because this is one of those collections that I really feel like it's undervalued, just because it takes so many amazing elements of the Caribbean experience and merges it with that that crypto experience, So for me, who founded the crypto Caribbean, it's so near and dear to my heart, because like one of my all-time favorites is the Bankless Bear. I mean, Stable Stout for people who know me, I'm a Guinness man. The Eat gas tank, I think, was the first piece from this collection that I saw, and I was like, this is brilliant. It's so simple but so impactful. Like, if people understand the crypto space and what Ethereum gas means to the space, it's such a powerful piece. I'm looking
Yeah, and I
for the
mean,
back. Go
as
ahead.
like as with all my work, I try to kind of put Trinidad and Caribbean references in, right? So I think that definitely I use this collection to really learn about the crypto space, learn about Web3, learn about the NFT space. And that's kind of why there's all these crypto references. It was really created over a 2-month time period where I was just trying to learn as much as possible. And I love puns. I love satirizing things. Like, I grew up on Mad Magazine and Saturday Night Live and these types of things, So this is really kind of the way I look at this, where instead of Banks Bay from Barbados, it's Bankless Bay. Like, just these kind of small jokes or whatever. And of course, had to use
like
the Caribbean references as well.
It's memeable.
Yeah.
It's Caribbean. It's authentic, And I just realized that I actually own the number one in the Bankless, so I'm very, very proud of that. I knew I owned one. I didn't know it was the number one. And tell me how that collection and maybe the success of that collection inspired you to go on and do different things. Was it always your intention to continue to grow in the NFT space, or this teaser kind of led you to go the next direction?
I think this was just kind of me testing the waters, figuring out how to mint work, figuring out how to price work. It was just kind of, at the time, obviously there were like a few podcasts, but I think NFTs, they weren't really in the mainstream as much as it is now. It's not really any mainstream, but at least now, like, you could ask most people, and most people would have at least heard of NFTs over the last year, right? So this was just me testing the waters, experimenting, trying to figure stuff out. And then the next collection I released after this was obviously Head of House. And for me, I wanted to create something that was basically, obviously with PFP collections, most of them are generative, right? Which means that it's just a series of traits that someone creates, and they just generate these one-off pieces. But for me, I wanted to try something different. I wanted to actually hand draw each one, right? And that way, it's very different to a PFP collection. It's kind of a mix of a PFP collection and a one-of-one collection.
Yeah.
Because each piece is a one-of-one. Each piece is physically hand drawn by me on the iPad. But yet it allows people to be able to have some of my work and be able to use it as their avatar on Twitter or Instagram or whatever the case is, And also I think I worked out the percentages, and I think 75% of the collection is based on Caribbean architecture. Most of that 75% is Trinidad and Tobago architecture. So once again, trying to kind of put that on the map. And then I decided I'll do some pop culture ones. I just been to Miami, so I did a Miami Art Deco sort of hotel that's on South Beach. And then I did some pop culture stuff like The Simpsons and Seinfeld and of course the SpongeBob pineapple. So it really was just something that I wanted to once again experiment with, kind of put it out from time to time, or really just give people from the Caribbean something that they could use as their PFPs.
And I mean, I'm talking about how each of these is an individually drawn piece of art. For those people who've been following this particular collection, who followed the mini collection within this collection, the Magnificent 7 pieces. Like, if you look at the detail that has gone into, the Whitehall and the QRC piece and all of these pieces in that mini collection, that really pays homage to that amazing architectural stretch around the savannah. I mean, honestly, for me, it's like, this is mind blowing. And for me personally, I can't see how this does not have tremendous value going forward. You know, like you said, the provenance of being one of the early collections, because I have no doubt that other people are going to do Magnificent Seven inspired NFTs. So definitely, I think, you know, the provenance of this, definitely one of my favorite collections from you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a lot of fun to put together.
And while you were doing this, right? So was it midway through doing this? You did the Portraits of Paradise collection.
Yeah.
When did that one come to be?
Portraits of Paradise, I was in Tobago in January with Alex and Alex's sister. Alex's sister got COVID, so we ended up basically being kind of stranded in Tobago. as stranded as you can be, because obviously worst places to be stuck, right? And for this collection, for this collection, what I really wanted was a collection of one-of-one pieces, kind of pop art, right? And so that's how the title Portraits of Paradise came up. Is from pop, P-O-P.
Right.
And basically I just wanted to create a collection that could be something that is everyone's first piece. It's priced at only 0.07 ETH, whereas like my other one-of-ones on Foundation, for instance, have been selling for 1 ETH, 1.5 ETH. So I really wanted something that was a very easy access point to maybe first-time collectors, because obviously in the Caribbean, as much as it's important to onboard artists into the NFT space so that they could kind of also be rewarded through this space, I think it's also important to onboard collectors as well. And so this was kind of my goal of this collection, was to create one-of-one pieces that were really low price points that could be someone's first NFT or whatever the case is.
Like, so the reason I'm kind of stopped here is because this Lollies is one that has been on my radar for a while, but Keisha keeps telling me that I'm spending too much money on NFTs. And when it was time for me to make a purchase, I had to choose between this and I can't remember which one I bought, but there were so many pieces in this that I loved. I think the Tobago bought this one was one. The Jetty Sunset was one. Like, there are so many amazing pieces in this particular collection. I would really, I agree with you that it's one that a new collector can access because of the price point. But I think, you know, an experienced collector has just as much value to be derived here as, you know, a new collector. Like this hummingbird. I mean, your stuff, I'm having a very biased conversation today, guys. I'm gonna admit it. I'm a super fan of Nick's work. So you know, I'm not speaking from an unbiased place. I've collected many of Nick's pieces. Some pieces got stolen out from under me. For example, the piece that you dropped on your birthday, on the anniversary of you in crypto, on your wedding day, was stolen out from under me by a certain gentleman whose name we shall not call here. Steve-O. But
yeah,
what has
that was a really big piece.
What has that journey been like for you? Like, you know, on your wedding day, to see a bidding war for your piece that you dropped to commemorate everything that was happening on that day.
Yeah, I mean, it was mind blowing, as it always is. Every time I get a sale, you know, I definitely don't take it for granted. So as with that being said, like, I was definitely extremely excited. On top of the fact that it was my wedding day, it was also my birthday. It was a day of a lot of celebration, you know.
Yeah. So Nick, we were supposed to be talking about the bear market, and we finally gotten to the point where we can have that discussion, right? And you, as an artist who collects his fees, he prices his work in Ethereum for the most part. I know you recently launched a collection on Tezos that is even more accessible to entry level collectors. But as someone who collects his work in Ethereum, how has the bear market impacted you and the way you approach your work on NFTs as the price of Ethereum has fallen?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, one ETH is one ETH, right? So I try not to look too much at the prices unless I get a sense from the Twitter feed that things looking like they're going up a little bit. But
like today.
I mean, yeah, exactly. I mean, I am a very I'm kind of in it for the long term. So I haven't really been studying the price too much. I would say in 2 years time or maybe I'll be looking at it in like a quarterly kind of thing and try to navigate how to move. But like right now for the most part, I have kept all my earnings in Ethereum, and I pretty much plan to hold for a little while,
Yeah.
So it hasn't really affected me too much. I mean, I'm also fortunate that the NFT stuff is like a labor of love. It's my passion. It's my passion, and I have a design agency which pays the bills. So I'm not really like too stressed by the fluctuations in the market at the moment.
Right. And how has your sales in the NFT space compared to the work that you've done in the traditional space from a purely artistic point of view and from a pure collector appreciation perspective?
How was it compared?
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I've sold prints, I've sold paintings, I've sold different commission digital work and stuff outside of the NFT space, obviously. I think the difference in the NFT space and the crypto space is that you do find a lot of collectors who kind of treat it as investments as opposed to simply just as a work of art. So that's been something that is always something to keep in mind, because at the end of the day, you do need to understand your audience, understand your collectors, try to figure out why people are buying. I've also been fortunate that I've had collectors like yourself and others who have kind of expressed that this is a long-term play, and that's kind of how I suggest people to view it. I mean, at the end of the day, my goal will be at the end of the day to bring as much value to my collectors as possible, and so that's kind of what I'm working on. But of course, as a one-man band, it takes time to build, But I mean, I've been doing. I've as you know, I've been out here putting in the hours and making sure that my work gets seen. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, nobody could say that you're shortchanging the game. Nick, we had an opportunity recently to go to New York to be part of NFT NYC to see what the NFT space is feeling about the progress. And that was a month ago. We were already heavily in the bear market. What was your main takeaway from that experience?
Yeah, I mean, being there was very overwhelming. There were a lot of people. I felt like there was a certain excitement in the air, which was very nice, because people may think, oh, it's the height of the bear market, or the opposite of the height of the bear market, and people may be a little bit wary or a little bit down or whatever the case is, because people's bags aren't looking as great as they were last year, whatever the case is. But I'd say, I mean, I was very optimistic by the reaction of people and how excited people were to be there. So I think it was overall a really great experience. And I mean, you and I had some really cool opportunities to speak to interesting people and talk to people who are doing really interesting things in the Web3 space. as well as visit some cool galleries and that kind of thing. So overall, like, I'd say it was a really great experience. New York is a city that breathes, so
yeah, for
it was
sure.
nice to be there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it was, I think it was reassuring because, like you said, we really heights of the beer market. People's bags not looking the way they were looking a few months previous, and to see 12,000 people show up to our conference, everybody's excited. To see companies and projects continue to invest money into building this thing, that we are all excited about, this crypto space, this NFT space, and to hear from those people about the cool things they're doing with the technology. For me, it was, like I said, super reassuring that this isn't going anywhere. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
To see projects like Doodles announce amazing collaborations, like, bringing Pharrell on as their, director of something brand, something,
Yeah.
and doing the first major fundraise for that project, with Serena Williams' husband. Sorry, I can't remember his name, but that's how I know him. The guy who founded Reddit. Like, seeing all those things happening and seeing artists and project founders all excited, seeing people like yourself there and people responding to your work, seeing projects like Days Ducks, who I've worked with, doing amazing things in that space, hosting events during that week. I mean, for me, it was mind blowing.
Yeah, definitely. And I think one of the nicest things about the NFT space to me is the community is so welcoming, and everyone is very friendly, and there doesn't seem to be any kind of like negative feelings from anyone to anyone else. So I think that's one of the nicest things, just going there and connecting with other artists, connecting with other project founders, and it was really nice.
Yeah, for sure. And so I think you would have entered that space, or entered into your first NFT conference as a relatively unknown artist from a global perspective, right? But something has happened recently that has had the world buzzing, right? We had the launch of the Black Panther trailer happen earlier this week, and then you and your team and Google dropped the steel pan doodle, and you guys were able to kick Black Panther off their perch after only one day, right? A lot of people might be asking, what are we talking about? So I'm going to show the video, and then we're going to talk a little bit about it, because I know a lot of people tuned in just to see that, right? Congratulations, sir, on an amazing job. I feel like every single time I watch that video, I see something else that I didn't notice quite before. and it speaks to, you know, how much detail you put into it. So to walk us through the process, walk us through the experience, walk us through the design,
Yeah,
the illustration.
Yeah, so basically the story behind the doodle was that in 2020 the pandemic struck. I was unfortunately stuck in England for 8 months while the
Worst
Trinidad and
place,
Tobago
worst
borders
place,
were closed.
worst place to be stuck. Rather, which one you rather, Tobago or London, to be stuck?
Tobago probably, but I can't lie. The English countryside is a special place, and
Okay.
I think I might have. Yeah, it's a hard choice, but so I was stuck there, and then in June I got a random DM from one of the art directors at Google, and she basically introduced herself and said that she wanted my email address to potentially work with me. And so of course I sent her the email address. She sent across an NDA, signed it, and then she sent me the creative brief, which was to create a Google Doodle for the steel pan. Now, most Google Doodles are just stationary images that just are at the top of the search bar. But I told her, I was like, with something like the steel pan, it would definitely be worth exploring, adding in music, adding in animation. Because to me, the steel pan is all about the sound, right? So
Right.
she agreed, and we decided, cool, instead of launching in July 2020, we will launch in July 2021. So from that point, I got in touch with Mixie Gobin, who's the animator that I always work with. And of course, he was super excited. So we brought him on the project. And I reached out to Etienne Charles, who's a friend of mine. And I said, hey, we're doing this. Can tell him what it was, because he needed to sign the NDA first. But I was like,
Right.
this is really cool opportunity. I think you should maybe consider signing this NDA and hearing about it, and maybe you could work on it. And he said, cool. And then he decided to onboard Bugsy Sharp, because he had played as a kid growing up in the Phase 2 band. And I guess Bugsy was like something of a mentor to him. So he brought Bugsy in, and they worked on the music aspect of it. And then while Mick and I worked on the visuals. So basically, in terms of the actual process, how it worked was I would create each scene, and I would illustrate each scene, and then I would give it to Mick, who would then make the elements move, right?
Right.
And so that was really the first step. It was meant to launch in July of 2021, but that was the time when COVID was hitting Trinidad pretty hard. We were in a lockdown. It was curfew. So given the kind of situation happening in Trinidad, it was decided that the launch would happen in 2022 instead. So it was good and bad. Bad because it was something we all wanted to share, but good because we had some extra time to work on it and really get everything looking really, really good. So I think I finished all the my part of it, all the illustrations, maybe in November, December of 2021. I think Mick finished animating everything maybe in like February or March 2022. And then I actually didn't see the final thing with the final music until last week, Friday or so, when Etienne sent me that final file. Because obviously the music was written specifically for this piece.
For the animation, right?
Because of course, the Google legal team has a lot of different stipulations with IP and everything. They just prefer to have a piece created specifically for that. So everything needed to be recorded, mastered, produced, etc., etc. And of course, they needed the animation to be able to add any sound effects like the crowd noises, the actual pan tuning, and all those sounds were created for that. It wasn't sound effects made on a computer.
Right.
It was literally someone actually tuning a pan that was recorded. It was actually someone playing the pan that was recorded. So we tried to make everything as authentic as possible. And then it was launching on the 26th. That was the date I was given, and then that was Tuesday. And then Monday night, I was walking home from from my walk around the savannah, and I was walking through St. Anne's, and I got a text saying, "Hey, well done on this Google job." And I was like, "That's not supposed to launch until tomorrow." So I was like, somebody spilled the beans or something. But then what I realized was, because it was a global release, it had just released in Europe and people started talking about it because it was midnight in Europe. And then I went on Twitter to kind of check out what was happening, and I just had a bunch of notifications from people in Japan. And I was like, okay, cool. It definitely hit Japan. And, you know, Japan there's a big steel pan culture there as well.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so that was kind of cool. And then, of course, with just network effects, I started getting messages by about 9 o'clock that night from people in Trinidad who word had got around. And then, of course, you know, I'm a man going to sleep around 10 o'clock. Of course, I had to wait until midnight to refresh Google on my computer to see it live. And yeah, that was kind of the start of it. And then I made a joke with Alex. I said, like, I woke up really early, and by 8 o'clock in the morning, I'd received more messages than I had received in maybe the last 10 birthdays and weddings, everything combined.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a really, really crazy day. The outpouring of messages and the kind of sense of pride that people in Trinidad felt by seeing that was, I mean, indescribable. I don't know what else I have to do in my career to ever top that. Hopefully that wasn't the peak, but I mean, it will definitely be hard to beat, you know?
Yeah, but I mean, Nick, what I would say is Google definitely is reassured that they should work with you again, because not only based on the response, but your ability to keep a secret for 2 years. 2 years as a trainee. So guys, Nick and I were talking about Nick coming on the podcast, and you know, Nick was like, yeah, this date might be a good date for me to be on or whatever, right? But he that's all he was saying. He couldn't give me any more than that. And I mean, Nick, it's amazing that you were able to hold that so close to your chest for 2 years. But I want to congratulate you. Amazing job. You walked us through the process, but I really wanted to walk us through the illustration, because there are so many different elements from the truck coming down from what I suppose is Laventille, the birthplace of Steel Pan, to driving through the streets, going to St. James. We're seeing doubles men on the side of the road. We're seeing masqueraders. We're seeing a snow cone vendor. We're seeing all these different elements. Like why was it for you so important in representing the steel pan, which is what the brief initially spoke to? Why was it so important to you to illustrate all these other elements?
I mean, I just wanted it. As far as I was concerned, I wanted to create something that if I didn't create it and I saw it, I would be proud to say, hey, that is Trinidad and Tobago. You know, that this is where I'm from. This is authentic to the birthplace of steel pan. So having things like all these little Easter eggs, like the doubles, the snow cone man, all these different things were a deliberate attempt for that when people saw it, they would immediately be able to say like, oh, this is Trinidad. There would be no question in it, you know. Of course, once again with the IP, there's certain aspects of the Trinidad like brand that you can't use. So that's why we had to include all these kind of more vague things, like
because
of course
you couldn't use the flag specifically.
And stuff exactly. Like so we had to use, like, for instance, the FET signs, which is a very standard part of the landscape of Trinidad. The typical truck, actually the story of how we illustrated the truck is very interesting. So Mick, apart from being an animator, is a boss 3D a 3D artist, right? So he actually modeled that truck in Blender so that we were able to have the exact same truck from every angle, so that we could basically use that as a underlay for me to then draw on top of, so that the truck looked the correct way, you know, because the truck was kind of the overarching motif through the piece.
Yeah,
exactly. It kind of tied every scene together, right? So we needed the truck to look really good, whereas everything else was basically, and I'll probably like make a video showing the process. I have some of the process stuff on my website already, on my blog, but it was basically everything was just the first thing we would have presented to Google would have been really rough sketches of each scene, which they would have then had to kind of sign off on, and of course getting the timeline right in terms of the final scene being on the road, not being the panorama scene, because the panorama scene could have been the penultimate thing and the most epic thing, but we wanted to stay true to the timeline of Carnival and have the panorama scene before they're on the road during Mass, which was the final St. James scene, right? And of course, too, like, I have friends that have visited for Carnival. I want them to be able to look at that and be like, hey, this feels like when I was there. I could recognize the St. James sign, which is a very, which has become like a very iconic part of Carnival. You know, that's kind of like the meeting place of a lot of bands. You know?
Yeah, I mean, it's like a happy sad moment, because when you see that St. James sign on Carnival Tuesday, you kind of know it almost over, and you kind of kick into a gear where like you're holding on to every last piece of mass that you could possibly hold on to, because you know we're on the final stretch. And I thought it was so fitting to have it at the end of the doodle.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I mean, it was, as I said, it was like a really epic last few days. Seeing the response to it. Like I went to the gym yesterday, and there had a couple of people there who didn't even know it was me, and we're talking about it. So it's always interesting to kind of get all these perspectives. And I mean, the amount of people that have reached out has been overwhelming, to say the least. But I mean, it's always great to hear that your work has been able to be seen by all these people. You know, number one trending on YouTube. Yeah, which is an epic achievement. Like, I mean,
listen, like, so I'm there refreshing. I'm like 1.7 million, 2.8 million, 3 point something million. I think the last thing I saw was like 4.9 million before Google decided they're gonna take off the count. They're gonna take off the count. And then after that, I was just looking at the trending. Like, it was number 8 trending. And then I'm checking like who's in front of us. I'm like, damn, Black Panther boy. All right. And then I see number 2 trending, and then I see number 1 trending, and I'm like, they just knocked Black Panther off its page. And I think the crazy thing for me, like you keep saying, you know, you were so happy to have the support of Trinidad and the diaspora, but I think the whole Caribbean was really, really, like, it felt like a win for the Caribbean, because I have a lot of friends from Jamaica, from Barbados, who messaged me and was like, yo, this is amazing. Like, it felt like it was for all of us, not just Trinis. So for me, that was a bigger win. You don't usually find like them getting behind us, especially when Barbados Carnival is coming up, Antigua Carnival is coming up, and they're here celebrating us, because again, our carnival would have birthed their carnivals. So I think it was a special moment for everyone.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, a lot of people globally probably see the steel pan as a tourist attraction or something you see when you get off a cruise ship. And even that played into the creative process, because I was like, I don't want to show anyone on a beach playing steel pan, because that is not the authentic Trinbagonian experience with steel pan, right? I want this to be a full band. I want this to be carnival. I want this to be the creation of the steel pan. That's what I wanted to show, more than the sort of cliched version of what the steel pan has kind of become, at least in the global mind, you know?
Yeah. So Nick, I mean, congratulations again. You kind of mentioned that you hope this is not the top. I don't think so for not even a second. You know my beliefs about, you know, your future and the success that you're gonna have in this space. Not just because of your talent, not just because of your work ethic, but I think you're an amazing person, and you put you put true positivity into the world. But I say all of that to butter you up for the next thing, right? I know you're an expert secret creeper, right? You must have 1 or 2 things that you're working on in the back end. Is there anything that we can look forward to next from you? Can we expect anything exciting coming soon? You don't have to give us the exact detail. We don't want it to,
Yeah.
nullify any NDAs, but
Yeah. I mean, I always say like one of my dream jobs has been to work with different alcohol companies and do
Right.
like packaging and stuff for different alcohol companies. So I would say look out for something coming soon, really soon.
NCTT, jump out on yourself. Get Nick.
Yeah, so something will be revealed soon.
Okay.
Before independence. That's the only little hint that I'll.
All right. We do have too long to wait, right? We don't have too long to wait.
Yeah.
And on the NFT side, what are you working on next? I know you have a goal to get head of house to a particular place. I know you've been doing your one-of-ones on foundation. What is the next step for you?
Yeah, I think one of my goals is to keep pushing head of house. I think soon I'll be announcing what the maximum number of head of house will be, so the collectors can kind of know, okay, cool, this is going to be the maximum amount, so now is my chance to get in. And also because head of house is such a time consuming PFP collection, I think it's probably best to keep it at a really low amount. So of course now is probably the best time to go and buy. Shameless plug. Just because
I personally, I'm gonna have to get another one. I'm gonna have to clear it with the accountant Keisha, but just because the one that I currently own, I have no intentions of selling it, and I may decide that I want to benefit from the capital appreciation, down the road. So I will need one that I at least might be a little bit more willing to let go of. So definitely, I'll definitely need to get one.
Yeah, and then I think too, other than that, once the head of house collection kind of wraps up and comes to an end, it will just be pushing secondary markets on that, and then also to, of course, working on other one-of-ones similar to what I've been releasing on Foundation. I have a few concepts I'm working on, and I mean, one of the goals as well would be to eventually get onto a platform like Super Rare, which is kind of the creme de la creme of one-of-one art. And yeah, so that's kind of next steps in terms of what's happening. As you know, I've been kind of working on these future one-of-ones kind of in the back end. I really want to make sure that I put a lot of time into it so that when I eventually am ready to release it, they're as finessed as possible. And then just keep pushing that stuff and really start limiting the amount of work that comes out to just be really top-notch stuff,
Yeah. Nick, I'm gonna jump into the Crypto Caribbean TV tip because I needed to give a tip to all the other artists who've seen your work with Google and want to know how they could repeat that type of success. So Nick, if you had to give some advice to a young up-and-coming artist, illustrator who is thinking about getting into the NFT space, who's thinking about getting on a platform like Google Doodles, what would you say is the key thing for them to be doing right now?
I would say don't look at anything as being overnight success. I think even like with the Google Doodle, what you're seeing is the highest tip of the iceberg, and below that is like countless years of work and like dedication to the craft. So once you could understand that there's a lot of work that goes into it, and you just work and work and work. I think I think when I first started doing illustrations every day on Instagram, I think I posted maybe like 200 illustrations before I got one job from doing that, So don't expect to do 5 good pieces and have the world knocking at your door to hire you. It really is all about consistency, all about hard work, all about improvement as well through this hard work and practice. And I think a lot of artists especially struggle with maybe putting out work that they don't think is as good as it can be, or they look at other people's work. But I do think that when you look back and you could say, hey, look at what I posted 5 years ago and look at where I've come now, it is the proof is in the pudding that you put in the work. So even if you think something isn't as good as it should be to post, still post it, because something I do all the time is I scroll through and I reminisce on how far my work has come and how it has evolved. And I think being able to show that and to be in the sort of public domain, whether that's on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, whatever, just share your work so that anyone who's thinking of hiring you because of good work, they could look back over the years and see that this isn't just a flash in the pan. This is the product of many years of work. This person has posted 1,000 times on Instagram in the last 5 years. This person has done all of this, and look at the evolution of their work, you know? So that would definitely be the key thing that I tell younger designers and artists to really take away. And even for me, like, I hope that in 10 years, I look back at what I'm doing now and I could say, wow, look at how far I've come, you know? So never feel like you've made it. There's always more steps to be taken.
Thank you very much, sir. So Nick, we're almost at the hour mark. I'm going to give you an opportunity to shout out whoever you want to shout out, thank whoever you want to thank, plug anything you want to plug. But I have one question before you jump into that. What title do you most like to be referred to by? Like a graphic artist, a graphic designer, an illustrator, an NFT artist? Like, if you had to choose one.
I think it depends on the context. Definitely, I will take graphic designer over graphic artist because my graphic work is design. It's not necessarily art. So I would say like that over graphic art. But I mean, it really just depends on the context. You know, I mean, I really don't mind overall.
All right. Shout out to you. Want to shout out, bro?
Yeah, of course. Must shout out the newly minted wife, Alex, who's right now. She's like, you mind if she has a lot of work. She's like, you mind if I catch the replay? I was like, yeah. I was like, you do your work, you know. Of course, shout out you, Al, because the amount that you are doing but for the crypto space and the NFT space in the Caribbean is something that should be applauded by everyone. And I talk a lot about hard work and consistency, and the fact that you showing up here every single Thursday night at 7 p.m. is incredible. So hats off to you.
Thank you, buddy.
And yeah, I mean, shout out everyone who's listening, and of course, like, yeah, big up everybody.
Nick, thank you so much for giving us a full hour of your time. I know your time is very, very precious, so I truly appreciate you. I think it was an important conversation. I know you've done a few interviews, but I think it was important for you to get a little bit more time to kind of go into a little bit more about the journey and the design itself. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, and thanks for having me on, man.
I will see you soon, right?
Of course.
Guys, as I always say, adoption is inevitable. Alluminati out. Thank you.